And welcome back in to a special finale recap episode of Tribal Council Chat. My name is Bruce Heller,
My name's Brooke.
and we have a special guest with us today making his second appearance on Tribal Council Chat. One of only three people now to make two appearances, and the second one was on our finale preview. The man behind at Survivor Quotes X on Twitter and Instagram. Go follow him. Our friend Steven Brochard is back.
What's up, everybody? It's very exciting to be back. It's quite an honor,
Really
especially covering the
excited.
finale. So I'm very
Thank you
excited.
so much for coming on, Stephen.
I can't wait. Let's get talking.
So, yeah, I just want to, off the top of the show, say, well, no, in my real life, I don't like to brag that much. When it comes to like flexing my Survivor knowledge, it's a bit of a different story. I've brought up the fact that I picked D to win last season a couple hundred times on this show. But for about 7 or 8 weeks now, probably a month and a half, I've been saying that I thought Kenzie was going to win, and I stuck by that, and it happened. The Mermaid Dragon,
Congratulations.
whose shirt I'm wearing right now,
The
won.
Mermaid Dragon.
She sells these shirts. How funny is this?
Oh, it's from her merch store. That's great.
So, great game played by her. I'm happy my prediction was right.
Yeah.
Wild finale, though. What are your overall thoughts on the episode?
Going in, I thought it was going to either be Kenzie or Charlie. Just based on the edit alone. I kind of thought Maria had a chance, but with the last two episodes, she kind of took a dive editing wise, and I thought they're making her seem kind of in a negative light. So I wouldn't be surprised if she lost. And Ben and Liz, I think, are really entertaining characters and are great people, but they weren't shown as being players. And I didn't think they were going to be the one to take the title. But Kenzie, I love it.
I agree with you. Going in, I came in thinking that it was. I think I probably came in thinking it was between Kenzie and Maria, with Charlie getting that shot. But at the same time, I'm like, the three of them are 40, 40, 20, however you want to
Mhm.
break it down. I didn't see a situation where Liz or Ben won the game, but at the same time, like you say, they both were great characters.
Mhm.
It's been great, as Bruce and I have been, to interact with Liz through social media all this season. I'm sure I'll have a lot of thoughts on how everything went down and how she played this episode, but that's all coming soon.
Mhm.
Yeah, and while I was rooting for Kenzie, and Kenzie was kind of my favorite of the season after about halfway through the pre-merge, I do have a great love for Liz. She's been such a fan and supporter of this show since 46 started. And when we were giving out stickers and just told people message us if you want one, she asked us for 10 so that she could give them out to people and spread the word. So
I really
shout out to Liz just because she's a fan of our show.
I want to know more about
I
Liz.
enjoyed watching
Like,
Liz this season.
she's an enigma to me because everyone kept kind of writing her off as, oh, and I'm talking about viewers. We're saying, oh, she's not making sense. She's acting delusional. But then you see someone like Ben win the final immunity, and he's like, no, Liz has got to go. She's such a big threat. Liz is always talking about how she's a big threat. So something's missing there. So I want to know more about her.
Yeah, and this changed about the time the merge hit. But for a while at the beginning of the season, we were getting like none of Liz at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was at one point where I think like the merge episode, two people were talking about like, oh, this person doesn't like that person, they don't like them. Liz can't stand soda. And I'm like, wait a second. We never saw that. Where's that coming from? Why is that not being shown to us?
Yeah, we were being told instead of being shown, and that was frustrating. And I think the benefit of having social media in today with Survivor is that, of course, there's a lot of drawbacks, a lot of toxicity, but with Liz, she's telling us things now that come from her point of view. And I have so many questions. I want to know how it really went because we're seeing the edited version. But if Liz made it to Final Tribal and got a few votes or even won, like the editing there would have totally flipped. And I want to see the Liz like extended edition.
I want to see Liz and Debbie having a conversation together. Just
Throw Coach in there
however that
too.
would go down. I'm not sure.
That would be great.
I I will say something that made me laugh last night is as Liz lost fire and is about to go and is like crying as she says, "It would have been over for you guys. I would have beaten any of you." And the camera just pans to Venus over on the jury bench in a very Venus moment as she gives kind of an eye roll. I'm
Yeah.
like, Liz thinks she's a target. Ben thought she was a target. The jurors really didn't seem to think so. They kind of all had reactions to the things she said.
Yeah, because I
So,
think from a viewer point of view, we all would have expected Charlie and Kenzie to be put in there. They're the two biggest threats as we are watching. So what's missing?
that might just kind of be evidence of what the jurors were saying that Ben was super nice and super
Mm.
emotional and likable, but kind of didn't always know what was happening game wise.
My
Yeah,
thought
that could
is,
be true.
and I'll give a bit of credit to Ben on this, at least the way I read it, is that I thought Ben might be thinking maybe I can't get 5 votes, but I can get 3.
Yeah,
So if he saw a path to win at 3-2-2, well, like 3-3-2 or something like that.
Mhm.
yeah. So diving into the actual like episode, it starts with them getting back from the previous tribal. Maria asks Charlie if they can go talk, and the way she tries to defend voting for him is interesting to me. Because what she basically does is frame everyone else for something they didn't exactly do. And she tells him, they all came to me telling me we couldn't beat you. I agreed to go with them, and then they bait and switched me and hoodwinked me. That's not what happened. You told them to vote for him, but
I
it's
thought
in,
it was a good deflection, but Charlie's too smart to know that she wasn't telling the truth. If he was a lesser player, I think he would have bought it, but he saw right through it because he was planning to do the exact same thing.
yeah. And I said this on our finale recap and last week. Charlie and Maria both ended up wanting to turn on each other.
Hmm.
The reason I think Charlie's a slightly better player is he used the whole debacle with Maria's reward selection and rock paper scissors gate and how poorly that was handled,
Hmm.
and used that to plant seeds in their head of, oh, she's really good, she needs to go. So by the time Maria wanted to turn on Charlie, they were already loyal to him. They were already ready to pull the trigger as soon as she didn't win immunity. He was just a step ahead of her, I think.
I
He built those relationships that had them thinking she was a bigger threat in the end.
I really was wondering. Remember when Charlie stepped out of the reward being chosen and said, "Maria, don't pick me"? Do you think he was maybe throwing her under the bus a little bit, making her make a
It's interesting.
controversial choice so someone was angry?
Yeah,
That
I
thought
never
didn't
thought
occur to me till you
that's
just
smart.
said it, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, if Charlie realizes if I get picked, they're gonna say Charlie and Maria are too strong, we got to separate them. But if I make her pick between two other people, one of them's gonna hate her, and I'm walking away with my hands clean.
Yeah. And then
So I don't know.
while she's eating pizza, going back to camp, planting more seeds about how poorly it was handled, or I'll be subjective. How poorly people said they handled it. She
Mhm.
handled it. It's open to interpretation what people think of how she did that, but it just he was a step ahead of her. So by the point that she finally didn't win immunity, him and his numbers were ready to pull the trigger. And she does end up going at 5, but what a great game from her up until the past
I
episode. So
I really thought she was gonna pull off that immunity win, and if it wasn't for Liz helping Kenzie, I think she would have done it.
yeah, so let's get into Final five immunity, because I know Brett texted me earlier that he had plenty of thoughts on this. So take it away, buddy.
How do we put this? First of all, I just want to say shout out to Kenzie. She played an amazing game, totally deserved to win. But as somebody who was, like Bruce says, he was picking Kenzie for about the last 2 months. I've been cheering for Maria for about the last 2 months.
Mhm.
And going into this, I have a lot of questions based on everything that happens. Because to paraphrase Liz, I'm kind of pissed. um, Essentially, the thought I have is we've seen players giving each other answers and things like that for years. That's fine. This is the first time that we've seen someone actually complete a portion of the challenge for somebody else. The equivalent I gave when I've had people tell me socials last night, this happens in the challenge on MTV all the time, is no, it doesn't. That would be like the equivalent of one player jumping off and doing the challenge for somebody else. So I guess my kind of thought is one, is this going to, and I'm curious to see what you both think, is this going to lead to some changes for 47, 48, and then 49, 50, as we'll see next year? And if it doesn't, how could this expand? Because one of the questions I've always wondered is like, take a challenge where you're balancing the idol on the top of a stick, as we've seen, or balancing a ball, multiple balls on a plate. Could you step out of the challenge intentionally to launch your ball at somebody else and knock them off? I don't know. Then could you, for example, take up someone else's puzzle piece now, seeing we can touch other players' puzzle pieces or other players' parts of the challenge and throw it in the ocean? Who knows? Um, Other thing I thought of, again, thinking back to an example of something we'd see more on the challenge with pole wrestling, is if I was in Maria in that case, before um, Liz can give the numbers to Kenzie, I'm jumping off that platform and tackling Liz to the ground in order to grab the ball or the piece of wood and doing it myself, using it as a shortcut. Curious to know what you guys think.
It's a dangerous precedent, I think. And if
Yeah.
you look back in previous seasons, I think the notable example in this is Sophie's quote of Albert, drop your stack, pick up my pieces. And Jeff says, no, 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 you no helping each other. So when did that change? Like, why is Jeff now saying, no, it's totally fine. Like, you go ahead and help Kenzie. So I want to know why that was able to change. And I agree with you.
I'm
I think,
almost,
yeah.
I'm guessing that maybe it was just such a, and I think this is probably it. Who in production would have ever thought that when you have to win, have a 1 in 4 chance of winning immunity, that you're just going to throw that away? Or I mean, a 1 in 4 chance of winning Survivor. But at the same time, then it becomes like, as another thing I've said to somebody else online today, maybe the solution is more simple than we think. If they run this challenge again, just have the route department build 10-foot walls between each lane.
Yeah, I mean, I know watching Australian Survivor, people have helped each other, but that's a totally different show. It's the same premise, but they make their own rules. So in U.S. Survivor, uh, it's just if I was Maria, I would be furious. Like I know she took it like a good sport, saying it took two people ganging up on me to take me out, but I would have been like, Jeff, why is this okay? So
Yeah.
it's frustrating because it makes you wonder, like in previous seasons where there was someone, say like Mike Holloway, who made his immunity run, could Carolyn and Rodney have teamed up and beat him? Like, would that have been fair? I don't think so. So I'm a bit conflicted on the precedent it's going to send forward.
I I didn't love watching. I didn't hate it. I didn't love watching it because of what you guys are saying. It's just something about it doesn't feel right. A couple things. First off, I don't think it'll set this new precedent or wave of this happening. Because as we've seen from this season, Liz is a very kind of quirky individual and player. And I can't see very many people just quitting in the middle of an any immunity challenge, but especially final five. I think strong majority, probably even 95%, 98% of contestants are going to keep fighting tooth and nail for their own game. I don't think very many people are just going to quit to help someone else. One thing though, Brett did mention the challenge. And what this reminded me of watching it is, I mean, this has happened many times, but I'll go to a recent memory is Challenge 38, I believe. Everyone wanted Turbo gone. Turbo's in an elimination round. The entire cast is shouting at the other team, telling them step by step, here's what to do this, do that. Helping, I think, Olivia and Horacio basically winning the elimination round for them. In which I didn't love it then, but it's been happening for the whole time on the challenge, so it's just part of the game. That's what it felt like to me. Not so much like sabotaging someone in a daily, but basically winning an elimination round for someone, which does happen all the time on the challenge.
Mm-hmm. I didn't like it then. I didn't like it yesterday, but I think the big difference is that there was a actual component completed by somebody else as opposed to just verbal assistance.
True, and the challenge does have precedent for the elimination helping. It's been happening forever. We really don't have precedent for this.
We don't. I precedent against it, like Steven said.
Yeah, and I didn't love it. It just, the competitor in me didn't like seeing Liz just give up. I just don't think there's enough of a risk of somebody quitting in the middle of a Final Five immunity challenge or any immunity challenge to help an opponent like that, to where it would be warrant the budget or time for the art department that's already so busy to build giant walls between the stages. But I mean, that might be worth it because I didn't like this. I didn't hate it, but it left a weird taste in my mouth.
It would be neat to see though.
Go ahead, Brett.
I was just going to say it would be neat to see though if they did with modern technology, because we as the audience could be getting drone shots and stuff of the challenge going on, whereas the players wouldn't even know who's in the lead.
Hear me out. What if instead of 10-foot tall walls, we just have the art department make more of those 500-pound geckos and make stacks of those in between each station?
I want to win one of those, and I want to win one of those on eBay and put it in my museum. That's my goal.
Those are so cool. What were you gonna say before?
No, I always thought it would have been interesting, like an interesting experiment, if they have the final immunity challenge be endurance, but have them in a separate location. So say you have three people, say it's like Palau, where they're on the buoy, but you don't know if the other person has stepped down. How long will you stay? I just thought that would have been wild.
You know, if we really don't want them to know what each other's doing, take one of my very favorite challenges, Last Gasp, which I've heard referred to as a drowning simulator, and that makes me chuckle. Make that the final immunity challenge sometime. That'd be wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my suggestion was mostly like in jest. I don't think that's a totally different game to be separating people and whatnot. But
yeah.
I want to know Jeff's reason for allowing them to help each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's neat to bring up the endurance challenge for final immunity, though, because I know I've told Booth this many times, but I don't know if I've ever said it on Tribal Council chat or not. But I always just wonder, because I actually thought they were going to do it as opposed to Samotion and bring back final immunity in Winners at War, be the hands-on hard idol challenge from season 1. And I'm like, just imagine if Tony, Sarah, Michelle, and Natalie would have got to do that challenge against each other.
That would have been so cool.
Yeah.
But instead we ended up with like the 5th time Samotion had been final immunity.
Samotion just makes my blood boil because I know I would be terrible at it. So watching it the first time, I think in Tocantins, I was like, I couldn't do this. And then every time it's come back, I'm like, I can handle it. And now I think it's like you said, it's been the final immunity challenge 5 times. Like I turned to my wife last night and I said, watch it be Samotion, and it wasn't. So I'm glad it wasn't.
I did randomly pull 5 just as a random number for the
Oh,
record.
okay.
I don't actually know, but it feels like it's been a lot.
Yeah, too many times.
I like watching it. I'm just tired of it always being final immunity.
Yeah, I agree. It's not my favorite challenge because it makes me anxious. But I think if it were not the final immunity challenge, maybe like final five, final six, that's fine with me.
I think my two favorite challenges are, I just mentioned Last Gasp, which makes a lot of people nervous, and I get that, but I like it. And the one where they survey everyone and then you have to guess who the most common answer was, just because that one reveals so much. It's so entertaining.
I'm really surprised they haven't done it since San Juan del Sur, and
Yeah.
that's when they kind of rigged it for each other. But that was with family members, so that's different.
Yeah.
And I really wish they would have brought it back.
Oh yeah.
To be
Bring
back.
bring it back this
And
season
even
when you
like
have people like Tevin and Venus involved. You know some sort of tea's gonna get spilled in that
I mean,
challenge.
my favorite time they ever did that challenge was All Stars, and they said who was least deserving of being an All Star, and they all said Alicia, and she was furious, and I would be too. So, like, why not do that at Winners at War, where it's like who least deserved to have won their season? Like, could you imagine just how nasty that would have been? And I don't want anyone's feelings to get hurt, but it's also good TV, so I don't know.
Or the
Or
one
wonder if
we're getting sidetracked. We'll get back on topic in a second, but or the one in Panama where just every negative question Courtney Merritt was the answer to.
What is a poser?
Gosh.
Oh,
or
that's great.
it was like I almost think the problem in San Juan del Sur though was with that challenge was that it was for rewards so that they knew they could bring each other. I'm thinking back to Amazon and Pearl Islands. They did it for immunity. There's one winner and that's it.
Exactly. It
It's
was more
works
high
out a
stakes.
lot better.
Yeah, that's true. So just don't do it for reward.
All right, Bruce, you
So
want to get us back on topic?
yeah. So Kenzie does end up winning immunity. And my thought here was Maria's done. I don't see her finding a way out of this at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I For a brief second when she was talking to Charlie, I was like, maybe, but that was gone right away.
Yeah.
My thought was that Maria is done, but I haven't heard this talked a lot about, so I might be totally out to lunch here. But I think that it's this afternoon that plays a huge result in the end of the game.
Interesting.
And I'll talk about that when we get to final.
And so Kenzie wins immunity and reward also. Was trying to decide between Ben and Liz because her and Ben have been so tight, but Liz just helped her win the challenge. Liz, in Liz fashion, goes, "Oh, take Ben. I'm allergic to pasta anyway." And my note from the sanctuary scene is I have loved the Kenzie Ben bond so much this season.
Yeah, I never would have thought of that like in the pre-merge, but once they came together, I was like, this is a natural fit for friendship. And my one comment on the sanctuary is, why didn't they clean off before they ate? They had their muddy hands like in all the pasta and everything. I was like, wouldn't you just want to wash your hands before you're eating garlic bread? And
I never
I didn't
noticed
even
that.
notice that. That's
yeah,
funny.
it's one thing if it's like on your shirt or on your body, like, but on your hands, I would have just wanted to wash my hands.
Yeah.
Pacific
And
Ocean 5 feet away from the sanctuary.
Exactly.
and I get budget wise the sanctuary is easy. Production makes it easy. But I miss when like reward wasn't just going to the same place all the time. Like
Yeah.
it's
Uh, I mean, you think of seasons past where they had an amazing array of awards, like Lex and Big Tom going on the hot air balloon over the Serengeti or Jellyfish Lake, and it was just so amazing. And we think of all these things, and now it's like you're going to the sanctuary.
Korea going to Angkor Wat, China going to the Great Wall.
Yeah, now it's like, oh, it's where good things happen. And it's like, it sounds like you're trying to send me to like TGI Fridays. Like, I'm sure I would enjoy eating, but it's the same thing. I'm getting bored of it.
But Applebee's, that makes everything okay.
That episode was wild.
So
Sit here as a Canadian going, I don't understand how Americans are so polarized over Applebee's in this show because I have never even seen one.
I don't know that it's polarized. It's not as much as like you either love it or you hate it. It just feels like a weird choice for it to be the thing that like Karishma or Liz like, and Liz has a tie to her daughter, so that makes sense. It's just of all the restaurants, that's the one that gets obsessed over.
Yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
bit
I
bizarre.
mean, I'm kind of lying. I shouldn't say I've never even seen one. I've been in Times Square a few times, like when I went to the Challenge 39 premiere party, but we don't have any here. So,
Yeah, it's just a chain restaurant. It's nothing.
yeah.
It's a
Like
bit strange.
Chili's, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
They even have the same color scheme.
I was a little underwhelmed by the reward that Kenzie and Ben won, though.
Yeah.
It was like just pasta and sauce
And garlic bread.
and garlic bread, and then like some wine.
And this.
But give them a steak or like a meat option. I'm sure you're dying for protein at that
Yeah, and
point.
I've heard Probst talk so much over the years, dating back to Borneo, about how to keep the rewards interesting, they have to escalate each time, and how Hatch had gathered up a group that was just not going to play a challenge if the reward wasn't increased.
Mhm.
And we had letters from home, we had Applebee's, and pasta as the reward that we've been building up to all this time.
I may be in the minority, but like bring back the car reward.
Yeah, that way you know who isn't going to win at some point.
I want to see someone
Last
beat the car curse.
Okay, and I'm getting off
last night's
topic again,
finale
but
was the
they should have.
last night's finale was the second highest rated finale, the highest rated finale since Australian Outback. I'm sure they could find a sponsor to do it.
And I've said this for years, and Ghost Island was the first season I saw. They should have brought the car back for Ghost Island. The whole season was about past mistakes and curses.
They should
The
have
whole
brought
thing
back
with
Cindy, and she could have introduced the curse and brought car. Like, yeah, that's a great idea. I didn't think of that.
the whole
Yeah,
season
that
was
is.
about curses and mistakes, and the car curse is so well known.
Bruce, I'm gonna steal that and tweet it. I hope that's okay.
That's fine.
Please do.
I'll tag you in it.
Okay. But so Maria isn't gonna go down without swinging, and her pitch to Liz and to Charlie is, we need to go for Ben. Ben is, let me find it. Ben is, and she says this to Kenzie too, so Kenzie's back. Ben is very deceptive. I I get it. She's making a pitch, but that was just weird for me to hear as an audience member. We've kind of been shown the opposite of that. That Ben's been super genuine with
Maria in
everyone.
this point is not that she only lost immunity, but that the other person with a great chance to win this game won it.
Yeah,
So
and she can't find an idol that she was looking for.
let's say to Liz, let's reverse order and Kenzie helps Liz win that challenge in some hypothetical world. Maria can probably say this was unfair, one, and two, Kenzie is going to win the game and get rid of Kenzie, but you can't do that with the other three.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Maria was kind of in a place that she couldn't win, and she knew it.
yeah.
When she was idol hunting, I was like, "Oh, I hope she finds it." Like that would have been chaotic.
Well, and I mentioned this recently. It may have been on our finale preview. But nowadays, it feels like they don't ever show people looking for an idol and not finding it. So when they showed her looking for so long, I was thinking, oh, geez, she's going to find it. What pandemonium is about to break loose?
And I don't think she
I
would have
was
told
even
anyone.
think I was even thinking going back to the fact that like Natalie found one at this point in the game and when it was at war that maybe they just didn't show us find it. I was fully expecting her to play one up until the minute that Jeff said if you have an idol play it and nothing happened.
Well, and there's even new era precedent for that because Nasir, I believe, they just showed us when he pulled it out that he found it 2 or 3 episodes ago.
I think they showed it once he like said the phrase.
That's what it was.
Yeah, because when he said the goat on AstroTurf, we were all like, "Oh, we didn't even know he found it." And I remember
That's
like,
what it was. I knew it was something that
yeah.
like they showed a flashback scene of him finding something that we hadn't been shown.
I wish they would do more of it where we don't know if they have an idol or not. And I don't want that every time, but
Yeah.
once or twice, every once in a while would be more entertaining.
But like Guatemala with Gary and Micronesia with my girl Amanda here, when
Uh-huh.
they just pulled it out and we didn't know if they found it or not, was so great. Like I love the shock of that.
Yeah, they did it once more with Ben in Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers, but he had played like two at that point, so it wasn't as exciting in my
Ben
opinion.
was super good at finding those though. So
A little too good, makes you wonder.
well, yeah, the one right beneath the
Finding them
spot
or
where he
were they
sleeps.
too easy?
But
Yeah, but I
moving
was
on.
hoping, I don't
So
know.
Final 5 tribal. Do you guys have any notes from this tribal necessarily?
I mean, I think we covered it. It was, unless an idol was getting played that we didn't know about, it was a dead giveaway what was going to happen.
Yeah, I will say I loved kind of the moment during Probst's questioning that Kenzie just gives Maria so much praise and props, and Kenzie's voting confessional of "I want to be you when I grow up." I loved that. That just kind of made me smile. That was really sweet.
Yeah, the Maria's final tribal was very it was a good send off, and
Yeah,
I appreciated that because I she was a character who I think deserved that kind of praise.
yeah. And so, and this is funny. Just a note I had written down right after that tribal, and just funny because it was so far off base. Apparently, I put after tribal, we see Liz making a fire at camp again because when she didn't get picked for Appleby, she made a fire.
Mhm.
Is this foreshadowing? Question mark. Because for some reason I had in my predictions that Liz was gonna beat someone in fire to make it to the end, but no, it turns out that like her ligaments are too big for her wrist, so she's bad at making fire. But we saw her make 2 different fires at camp. I thought they were trying to tell us something. I was off base.
I wonder if that was put in there intentionally to mislead people. I know
What do you mean?
the early 10 seasons were full of fake or real foreshadowing, and it was kind of fun trying to figure it out. But now I don't know if they're as creative, which is upsetting.
Yeah. They do some creative stuff. It's just different now.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that would be more accurate for me to say.
The next note I had, which was kind of right after that, is Ben panic attack montage and Kenzie always being there is interesting. I like this, very raw, very real, and it's just kind of cool to see that he's overcome all this out on the island. It's not something we've seen a ton of on the show before. So
Part of me wonders, are they putting this in? And I like it, so I'm not criticizing, but are they putting this in to kind of reinforce Jeff's idea that 26 days is still hard?
yeah, I don't know. And I'm torn on that debate, and we don't need to get down the rabbit hole that Eliza sent Twitter down a few weeks ago of which one's harder. But
I mean, I would say even one day out there is hard, so
yeah,
I'm not going to be
26
stupid.
days. Yes, there's 13 days missing, but they aren't given rice anymore. And the schedule is so much closer packed. You don't have downtime to relax. So I get the argument.
But I liked that they included Ben's kind of breakdown over this season because it really showed you, yeah, this season may be shorter length days of, day wise, but it's still extremely brutal. So I'm glad they incorporated that.
Yeah. And right before final immunity challenge, we see a scene of Liz saying that people she as far as she's concerned, people think of her as the biggest threat. And so we talked about earlier, like what's the disconnect there, and we really don't know. But that was on my radar too. So
Yeah, no, I definitely listened to that and I thought either she's winning this challenge or she's going out with fire. Like
yeah,
that was my take on it. And I'm dying to get the Liz extended edition season.
and I had this written in my notes for the fire making challenge, so we may get back to this. But watch the jury during the fire making challenge, and it seems like they're all rooting against Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some kind of disconnect here that we don't really understand.
But her and Ben are convinced that if she's at the end, she wins. So yeah, it's
What,
weird.
yeah.
Final immunity. I love this challenge, by the way. So
Yeah.
it's pretty simple. It's a puzzle, but you have giant ski ball slash plinko that's, who knows, 20 feet tall maybe.
Mhm.
You have to throw it up there and wait. You can build your puzzle as it's plinkoing down. But if it hits this little metal catch thingy, you have to wait for it to go through all the little ramps. But I loved it. This is new.
I loved it too. I was listening to Jeff and D talk about this today, and Jeff was saying that the art department took so much time to perfect the speed of how that ball would go down the ramp if you missed it, but also what would be the exact perfect amount of blocks in the middle so that it wouldn't either be pointless to watch for and you could give yourself 5 minutes, or that it wouldn't be drop instantly and everybody would be waiting all the time. So great job to production on just building the physics of this challenge has got to be incredible.
Yeah. My question while watching this was, I wonder, did they all choose to stand on that side of the puzzle with their backs to Plinko?
They must have
Or
had
did they
to.
have to? Because my whole thinking is, if it's an option, I'm gonna stand on the other side of, and it might have been a camera thing, but like I would have at least tried to stand on the other side of the puzzle where I can be watching Plinko as I'm
I
doing
Yeah,
it, rather than like
I'm
looking
guessing
over my
production
shoulder.
didn't let them.
I would imagine that they probably just put a camera straight in front of the puzzle and a mat on the other side, and you're
True.
kind of getting a picture of here's what I have to do.
The one thing I thought of is why didn't anyone kind of solve it on the ground quickly and not even put the pieces together, but just have it laid out on the ground? And then that way you could quickly make the transition to have it standing.
Liz might have been, honestly, because they showed everyone's puzzles after the challenge, and she had like a chunk of it put together, but like on the ground, leaned up against the base. So
Because I felt like when I was watching Kenzie and Charlie, they were just fumbling around with the table, and it obviously worked for them as they got through the puzzle quickly, but I felt
yeah,
like it would have saved more time if you kind of had edge pieces in place on the ground and then you could pick it up and go. And I don't know. I can't imagine that anxiety though of constantly looking over your shoulder as you're trying to solve a puzzle. So I was really excited to see this challenge, and I hope they
well,
do it
and
again.
for Ben, the guy that showed up and said, I've barely sleeping for 13 days, having panic attacks every night. I don't have the energy to focus. Only one that didn't have any problems with Plinko, because Charlie and Liz both let the ball hit the metal thing twice and have to watch it go all the way through. Kenzie somehow rolled it slash threw it to where it went way over there and flew over the thing. Not really sure how that happened, but and then proceeded to just out of physical weakness, 25, 26 days, not be able to get it up the thing two or
I
three
wonder
times in a row
what
after retrieving it. Ben somehow was the only one that didn't have any trouble with Plinko after not having the energy to focus.
I was wondering what would have happened if Kenzie couldn't find her ball. Is she just disqualified like how Jake was last season when he broke the challenge?
Forgot about that.
I don't know. My mind tends to just go to these strange places. But no, I was really proud of Ben, and he just seems like such a good dude that like to see him win. Like I was cheering. I was so excited for him.
Yeah, that was really cool. And so we get back to camp, and Ben has a decision to make. What are your all's initial thoughts on Ben's decision, what you would do if you were in his spot, anything related to this scene?
I don't know if she told you this, Bruce, but because you didn't watch the episode live, I was texting back and forth with your mom last night.
I saw that.
And I'm like, why is he deciding between these two? Taking Liz to the end is the obvious decision based on this jury.
Yeah, and that's where I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier is one or two people on the jury kind of mentioned that Ben is such a great guy, very in touch with his emotions, but kind of didn't, they got the sense he didn't know what was going on all the time game-wise. So I think this may just kind of be proof of that he may have just misread Liz's chances of winning.
Yeah, I think if he was really in the know, he would have known it was between Kenzie and Charlie.
Yeah.
And maybe that was Charlie's way of kind of, or Kenzie, of downplaying their threat level. I'm not sure, but it could have been Ben misinterpreting things.
Yeah. I wonder if Ben thought he had how much of a chance he thought he had going into Final Tribal.
I was wondering that too, because going into the finale, I predicted that Ben would be a zero vote um, finalist if he got there, but did
He
he?
needs to be one today.
I thought I spent a while saying that I thought Venus would be a zero vote finalist. Once she went home, I figured it would be Ben. But I wonder if he knew that, like you said.
I don't know, but I do like Ben, and if I ever meet him, I just want to like hang out and have a beer and sing karaoke with him. He seems like a lot of fun.
He seems like so much fun to hang out with.
Mm. And did you see his on Twitter today? He was on a Rolling Stone article.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that
I
was
know
really
after the song
based
battle,
on my-
Metallica reached out to him or something like that.
Mhm.
Really?
One of them messaged the other one, and the second person responded. I don't remember who initiated it, but
I was just going to say quickly before we move on, though, Bruce, how you mentioned karaoke, Stephen. That would be really fun, but based on my last cruise experience of me drinking a whole bottle of wine and singing Back to December and Fearless, I think I want to sing karaoke with Charlie someday.
Oh, that's great.
that's fantastic. So, real quick, because we mentioned production being creative with their editing, as Ben is going through this whole trying to decide between Kenzie and Charlie, we have this creepy, eerie knife clanging sound in the background for
I
5 minutes
loved
straight.
it. I loved it. I thought like Mike Scoopin was gonna pop out and stab a pig. Like it was so raw. Granted,
Felt
he
like a
does
horror
worse
movie.
things now. So, uh, no, I love
I
that
was going to be the only one to bring him up on this podcast tonight.
Well, I mean, when you think of crazy people on Survivor, Mike Scoopin's got to be on that list, and he has done worse. And I will never say anything nice about him. But when you think of people with knives on Survivor, like him killing that pig, it was terrifying. So when they were playing that soundtrack, I was like, "Oh, this is like vintage Survivor." I loved
I
it.
just kind of felt like I was watching some horror movie, honestly, or like Beetlejuice or something that's supposed to be creepy.
It was good. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going into fire making, Ben ends up deciding to send Kenzie to fire against Liz. What were your all thoughts on this?
Like I said, it isn't what I would have done, but Ben, I think maybe had some sort of rationale of why he made that decision. Any decision he makes is probably the best decision he can because at this point he's stuck in a Final Four with a season where there's going to be three players at the end, not two, and two of them are just far more ahead on the jury, being Charlie and Kenzie. So he made that decision. It was probably the best one he could, and it basically turned out exactly as I expected it to.
Yeah, I wonder what the deciding factor was between sending Kenzie versus Charlie, because they seemed pretty evenly matched, evenly struggling, practicing fire at camp.
And Kenzie was pissed, and I don't blame her. I would have been too. Um, but I like Charlie saying, I don't need to make fire. I think I did enough to prove myself.
Yeah.
So I respected that. Um, in hindsight, obviously, it would have been better for Ben to send Kenzie and Charlie. That way, one of them is knocked out, and then we probably would have had a blown out winner. But um, I think he made the right choice in the moment if he was thinking Liz was that big of a threat.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of where I had the note here. The whole jury seems to be either rooting for Kenzie or against Liz. And I wasn't really, I mean, I've said before, Tevin strikes me as the type of person to be with the potential to be a bitter juror. And him going home kind of started as Liz's idea. So I'm guessing that's kind of where it came from. But like the whole jury was doing it. They all seemed to be rooting. No one was rooting for Liz there.
And the first, I would say, 45 seconds, I thought Kenzie was done.
Yeah.
And I was watching the jury's reaction, and they didn't seem too happy. And I think even Q said, "Why is she choking up?" And I said to my wife, I turned to her and I said, "This is it. Kenzie's done." And I'm glad I was wrong, but I really thought Liz was taking it.
I think all her, because she said she's been good at fire the whole game. I think she got in her own head in a big way, practicing all day and just struggling like that. And it just snowballed until about halfway through this fire making challenge.
Hmm.
And leave it to Q to bring an old man saying into this. But Q sat there and said, pressure's getting to her. Pressure can either bust a pipe or create a diamond. And about the time he says that, Kenzie gets a flame that whoosh really quickly out of nowhere. So
I think on Twitter over the years, I've always said I'm anti forced fire at Final Four, and I'm going to stand behind that, but it is entertaining. So I
I,
will admit that.
entertaining, but when I think of back to two notable ones being Aubrey Sydney and Celie Danielle, it was even more entertaining when it happened naturally.
I agree. I agree. I don't like it being forced.
I don't like it. I prefer a vote, but and I've gotten off topic a little bit. Well, we all have, but it's usually my fault. I will say this though, I get Probst's reasoning for it, and like where he's coming from is a lot of times the person that goes home at 4, like a Jesse, for example, in 43, that's just, or like Maria here at 5, someone that's just target number 1, been dominating. If they don't win immunity, they're gone. Fire kind of gives that person a little bit more of a chance, is his reasoning. I still don't like it. I prefer a vote, but I understand where he's coming from with this one. Whereas things like do or die or the hourglass, I just have no idea where his head was at.
Yeah,
And he
those.
himself has roasted the hourglass enough. I don't need to, but I get where he's coming from on fire.
I'm so thankful no one was eliminated from Do or Die. Could you imagine?
He
I
has
see.
said on season 1 of On Fire, he said something along the lines of he deserves to have to wear a 15-pound necklace all the time for how bad the hourglass was. What Do or Die was even worse somehow.
I mean, I guess you're putting yourself in that situation by choosing to be in the immunity challenge, and if you lose, you have to go for it. But I don't like it.
I don't either.
I've been
And
watching since the summer of 2000, and I love the natural evolution of it's a political game, it's a social game, it's strategic, it's physical. Less is more, in my opinion, of production's interjection into it. Let the players decide who they want to vote out and don't force people into these situations where they have to play a game of chance or build a fire or something.
yeah, and the force of vote was also weird. By the way, I haven't minded a lot of the advantages the new era has created, but force a vote was a little much.
The last two seasons I felt like were really relaxed on advantages and out of whack kind of gameplay with advantages and I liked it. I preferred that.
Yeah,
I mentioned it not too long ago because a lot of people on socials have been bashing this cast for not playing the immunity idols. But I'm like, as someone who's like you, Steven said, have been watching since the summer of 2000. I'm like, even though there are all these idols in the game, this season was a breath of fresh air where every single tribal, the person with the most votes, went home.
I think I tweeted this. It reminded me of like Gabon meets Micronesia, where you have these
That's
people who are trying to be strategic, they're trying to make good moves, they're social, but there's also so much freaking chaos where like
I
things
love
are
it.
happening that shouldn't happen, and it was so entertaining. So I get a lot of hate tweets in my replies, and I usually just skim right over them. But a bunch of them were like what you just said, that this season is boring or people are being stupid. And I was like, no, this is fascinating. Why are these people feeling so safe? I don't think they're stupid. I think they're being outplayed or like it. I don't know. It was so entertaining. So the Gabon meets Micronesia connection for me just sticks.
yeah. Gabon, I like to describe Gabon as a beautiful train wreck, and
Mhm.
that the gameplay is just kind of awful, but you can't help but watch because the personalities and the storylines and the conflict, it's just so chaotic and wild and kind of dumb at times. It's just it's a beautiful train wreck of a season.
I love it. I love it.
So Kenzie ends up winning Fire, as we talked about. Her and Liz were both equally struggling for a while. I did as hard as I was rooting for Kenzie, I did feel bad for Liz because 2 or 3 times she had a flame start and then it went out like 5 seconds later. Like she was pretty close to getting something started at some point, but
Yeah,
I
I felt for her frustration there. That's got to be so heartbreaking.
I did say my note is like shout out to Liz. Like I said, I've got nothing but love for her. She has been such a fan and supporter of this show. But admittedly, when because I was rooting for Kenzie and I have been for most of the season, when Kenzie won, I was kind of like yes at 1:30 in the morning while I was watching this when both of my parents were upstairs asleep. I don't think I woke either of them up, but I immediately realized I had to be quieter.
That's funny because I remember watching Australian Outback live when it aired, and when Jerry got voted out, I remember standing and screaming. I must have been in like fourth grade, and I went outside, and people were like celebrating in the streets because Survivor was such a big thing. And you're like, why was Jerry so hated looking back? Like she didn't do anything wrong. So
No,
justice for Jerry. Let's just throw that out there.
and on all we we've made it this long without an All Stars reference, Brett. That might be a new record. But she gets booed off the stage at the finale of All Stars. Like what the heck?
And what she says is not wrong.
No.
But like Lex, who is the biggest hypocrite about Rob, gets to stay. Nobody, he doesn't get booed the way Jerry did. And Jerry was right. They are real people. That's the only point she was making there.
Yeah. When I met with Hatch and we had breakfast together, he said that
Literally just gonna ask you about that at the end of the show. So
oh, it was so much fun. It was amazing. But I
nice.
brought up Jerry and All Stars, and he said that um, some people went into it trying to redeem themselves, which is easy for him to say because he already won. But he said Jerry took it really hard, and I don't blame her.
Yeah.
She was hated, and looking back, when you watch Australian Outback now, what did she do? She
Nothing.
just no. She was just a woman who had an opinion. Like that's why is that terrible? So all right, let's
Hatch
get back.
does make me laugh at the All Stars finale though, because Probst is trying to get an answer from Lex about like the Rob thing and the fact that he gave the same line to Ethan and Colby right before that. And Lex can't explain why he doesn't think it's the same thing. It is the same thing. But Lex couldn't explain it because Hatch just had to interject his opinion in. And it makes me laugh every time.
I think All Stars has a bad reputation. It's dark, but those first 4 or 5 episodes are just so
I
funny.
love it.
Yeah.
What's funny is it's neither of our favorite seasons. I think it's like somewhere between 15 and 20 for me, maybe. But it's
Same.
easily the season the two of us reference most on this show, just
Yeah.
some reason.
Well, I mean, it's like I've told Bruce many times. I got the DVD set of All Stars for Christmas in like 2006 or something. So I've watched that season 5 dozen times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's easily my most rewatch season, I think, because of the same situation with the DVDs.
it's so good. It's yeah. And
So,
so
final three.
yeah, after Fire, I wrote down Kenzie may have just won the game, which ended up being true, but that moment reminded me of last season. And the people that listen to this show are probably tired of this because they know I'm a big D fan. But the second D won final immunity, I turned to my mom, and we're at my grandparents' house who know nothing about Survivor, I assume. And I told them, I said, she just won this game.
Mm.
Because I was worried D wasn't going to make final three. This was that moment for me this season. Kenzie wins Fire, and I was alone, so I didn't say it out loud to anyone. But I wrote down on my notes, she may have just won here.
I agree. I think that's the most accurate take. Once she won that fire making, her biggest next obstacle was Charlie, and I felt like I tweeted out. I think she's got it.
Hey,
Surprised
fire
that I
making's
know.
where she won Maria's vote, supposedly. So,
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get there, but
So
I
just
had to throw
before
that
we
little
get to
line in there.
final, I want to talk about the kind of like final three scene quickly. Um, because I love what they've done for the last 2 seasons. They used to do it on YouTube. I've showed, as a big Michelle fan myself, showed so many people the Jury Speaks segment on YouTube from Korong, and I'm like, no, this is why Michelle won. I love that they're putting this in the show now so that people can actually hear from our jury going into final as opposed to just automatically thinking, oh, the jury was automatically bitter without having any rationale for why that might be or why it wasn't.
Yeah, it was a great inclusion, and I loved the seriousness of it. It came across a little cheesy, but I loved it. It was great. I thought they all did a fantastic job.
Not to get controversial, because Survivor Twitter seems to hate this season, but the Jury Speaks would have been super helpful with 43. Just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't even like I'm not one that dis- dislikes Gabler or like there's a good section of people on Twitter that just would act like Cassidy won the season and erase Gabler. He won for a reason. I just don't know what that is. They didn't show it to us. I kind of
And I'm
compare his
just gonna
season to
say,
Natalie White,
I
where
don't
it's a
think
social game and they just don't show it well.
I'm just gonna say I don't think you can really go off so much of social media. But as the one non-American sitting on this podcast, I think a lot of all that talk about and also someone who personally was cheering for Cassidy at that point, a lot of this has to do with things that are so external to the game that they shouldn't even be discussed.
Yeah. Anyway, overarching point, I got distracted. What a shocker. Jury Speaks would have been helpful for 43 because I have no idea what happened there, and I'm really curious about it. So, moving into Final Tribal, I I actually have I kept pausing it because what I was doing is I wrote down each juror question and the responses. So I figure we could just go question by question.
Perfect.
So Tiffany starts it off, and her question is, what move did you make on your own that changes the course of the game? Ben struggles to answer at first, which I thought was interesting and kind of telling. Charlie immediately says the Hunter vote, but then Hunter interjects to say the reason I didn't play my idol wasn't you, it was Kenzie sold me on it, and Kenzie told me not to. And Kenzie tries to answer, ends in another Q involved argument somehow because the Yanu 3 just are who they are, but ultimately answers the Tim vote. So, what are your all thoughts on this first question and kind of the round of answers there?
I thought when Kenzie said to Q that he was making up his own stories, that she lost his jury vote in that moment. So I was a little surprised that he voted for her, and I'm glad he did. But I thought maybe her approach was a little rough in that question.
She wasn't wrong though. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
Tiffany's memory was backing up what Kenzie was saying.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it worked out for her, but it was a little risky because I think of like last season when Dee said to Bruce kind of something at final about not playing the idol, and I think Bruce said afterwards he's like, "Yeah, that pissed me off." So it's thin ice to skate on.
yeah, he was another one I would just love to like have lunch with sometime and hear that guy talk because he's hysterical.
I love Q, and I hope he's on 50.
Because like yesterday on Twitter, Brett sent me the first tweet of this, but it kept going. Venus was having Twitter beef with the Empire State Building,
Yeah, that was great.
and let me see if Q got involved somehow. Let me see if I don't have it off the top of my head, but Q basically told the Empire State Building, "No, you're not allowed to make fun of or hassle the planet from our season. Only I can do that."
Q is he's a gift.
Yeah.
I feel like he is Coach and Philip and Debbie, but smarter,
Oh,
all
I've
put
been
together.
calling him Coach
I love that.
Burdette since he pretended to want to quit or whatever that was.
I love him. I love him. Q, if you're listening, I love you.
Let me see. I have this tweet somewhere. Sorry. Oh well, I'll see if I can find it by the time we finish. But the next jury question is Venus asks people, what's one mistake you made that you were able to capitalize on? Charlie, probably honest answer, but also kind of pandering a little bit to Venus, answers that voting for Venus that one time where he was the only Venus vote was a mistake. And right before being recruited to the six, Kenzie answers kind of getting cocky and complacent leading up to the Tiffany vote and how it led her to reestablish relationships and this kind of established this Charlie, Liz, Ben, Kenzie alliance that dominated the last couple episodes. And that kind of Ben doesn't necessarily get a chance to answer here because Tevin interjects and asks him about the accidental jury vote, and somehow Ben's answer satisfies Tevin. So this round of question and answers, what was your all thoughts here?
It's a good question to really see. Are you willing to admit you didn't play a perfect game? And if so, how did you kind of recover from your stumble? So I liked it. I thought it was a good question.
Yeah. Real quick before I get to the next question, I found this. Hugh's exact tweet was, "Hey, not about to let anyone else pick on the planet from our season. That's my job. Back off, Empire State Building. Big mistake."
Whoever runs the Empire State Building Twitter deserves a raise.
They do. I
Yeah.
just love that Q is beefing with a building now for some reason. And it was at this point that I wrote down, I don't have a great feeling for any slim chances Ben had, because he wasn't able to answer the first question. And the second question, before he can answer about a mistake he made, Tevin interjects and asks him about, hey, and remind everyone, you typoed on a vote and just voted for the wrong person for no reason. So not off to a great start for Ben. So Tevin's up next, and he asks them how they used the jury to vote, how he used people on the jury to further their game. And Charlie once again answers someone's question by using the question asker in his answer and says he used Tevin and found out that he was the power player on Nami and figured out their cracks and alliances. Kenzie answers that like managing her emotions after the Tiff blindside and like how she went from devastated to out for blood to working with Q, who she was ticked off at. And Ben's answer is talking about Maria and Q, preaching to him constantly what he should do and how he should be feeling, and how he took that information they were telling him to the others and to this alliance of four that had formed. So, what were your all thoughts on these?
I really like that answer from Charlie. Makes a lot of sense from a future lawyer, maybe future politician, someone in my field.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I didn't really understand Ben's response to that. I mean, I understood it, but it wasn't really something that we saw.
we kind of did. We
Responses
saw it
from
on the
this
pizza
final.
reward.
Yeah, a little bit. So it makes you wonder, like, how many times that did that also happen?
Because the pizza reward was everyone at camp complaining that Maria said she wants to take care of people that haven't eaten, and then taking Q, who had just gone on reward.
Yeah.
And then there was the people at the pizza reward, which was Maria and Q telling Ben, here's who you need to vote for and why.
Mhm.
So I assume more of that happened. It made sense. Kenzie's answer was, I mean, I liked it was fresh from just a couple episodes ago, but I liked her. She's such a good storyteller. The fact that she told this story of when Q blindsided Tiffany, I was devastated, crying all night. Then I went to bloodthirsty, and then I went to working with him for a few votes because I think what draws people in and what drew the jurors that voted for her in are she's so descriptive and so good at storytelling that yeah. And so
Yeah. Yeah, she's got that ability to narrate without being overly biased towards herself, which I think is really great.
and on top of that, she just seems like such a kind, genuine, likable person, which goes a long
Mhm.
way.
I agree.
So Hunter gets up next, and his question doesn't apply. This is an interesting question. It doesn't apply to Ben because what he asks is he asked Charlie and Kenzie what they would do if they were in Ben's spot. And Kenzie's answer is really interesting here. I trust Kenzie, but in the moment I'm thinking, okay, am I gonna buy this or is she saying this for show? Because her answer was, I would have done the same thing. I would have put myself in fire against Liz. Which
It's always the safe answer.
it's the safe answer, and I have no reason not to believe Kenzie, but like I don't know if I buy that or not.
Yeah, I thought it was a politician's answer.
Yeah.
And Charlie says he would have taken Liz with him and put Ben against Kenzie. And Hunter says an interesting line to him here. I hope getting to this point in a safe way didn't hurt you. You've said your goal was to make it to the end at all costs. I would hope your goal was to win.
It was at this very moment that I said Kenzie's won the game.
And Hunter ends up voting for him after that, but like that was kind of a reality check for Charlie, I think. But
Wondering maybe if he wanted to see what Charlie's reaction to that would have been.
yeah, and he lost, but Charlie had a really good final tribal, I feel like. He explained his game really well and how his game was based on never close a door, never close off a possible relationship, possible ally. And he played it really well.
Mm.
Kenzie was just better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus Maria, but we'll get to that. Soda's up next, and she says Ben played an emotional game with no agency. Charlie played the middle really well with Maria, but didn't set himself apart from her enough. And Kenzie was brought into votes and said, tell me who to, and Kenzie's thing was, tell me who to vote for. And Soda just says, prove me wrong in 30 seconds. And I didn't love the 30 seconds. I didn't love that Tiff was a 30-second timer and cut people off in the middle of their sentence, but you're the jury. I guess you have the power to do that. I thought it was annoying, but oh well.
I didn't like that either. I think Soda is as her question fully within her rights to set a time limit. I my initial reaction to that, as I said out loud while watching the TV, was who made Tiffany queen to decide how to answer the question. Soda might say 30 seconds, and while she's answering or he's answering, decide that she wants to hear more and let them go for 40. Who knows?
From
Yeah,
the very beginning, I feel like someone appointed Tiffany queen of this jury because she started this whole thing off by saying, "Hey, we don't want song names or song lyrics. Give us real answers."
Yeah, maybe
yeah.
maybe we're missing out on something because we don't get Ponderosa anymore.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't love the 30 seconds either. I felt like if I'm in this game for 26 days and I'm making it this far, like, and not being able to explain it in 30 seconds, give me 45 seconds. Like, come on.
yeah. So Kenzie takes this as an opportunity to flex her social game and her relationship. And the response she gets from Soda is, "Okay, nice ownership of your game. Good job." Charlie points out that by the time Maria took a shot at him, he already had numbers lined up against her and numbers lined up to protect himself, which I felt like was a great answer. That came to my mind when Soda said that originally. So Ben's the funny one here. Ben basically starts off by saying, "Yeah, you're right," and then goes on to point out that while Soda is right, that's what he had to do to get to this point and how that helped him build bonds with people.
Yeah, Charlie knocked it out of the park there. His answer was, in my mind, the best answer of the three.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree.
Um, Kenzie's response of, yeah, I just kind of went with it was risky. I don't know.
It was, but going with the flow and anyone but me won Sandra 2 seasons. So
Mhm. Yeah, I guess you have to know your jury, which she obviously did, because if you're expecting a bunch of people who are only respecting strategic moves, they're not going to appreciate that, but that wasn't the case here.
yeah. And so Q is up next, and it's a question we've got before. It's a question I don't love. I'm not going to go as far as some people and say that it shouldn't be allowed. I don't love the question. Q asks, "What would you do with the money if you won?" And like, I feel like you should be voting based on who played the best game, not what they're going to do outside the game. But again, he's the juror. He has every right to ask whatever question he wants. I just
I'm gonna
personally
say
don't
to
like the
this.
question.
I'm gonna say to this that I don't love the question. To Kenzie's credit, I do love her answer, mostly because it's how as if you audition to the show, as I have a couple of times, it's things that you think about of what questions have came up before, and she answers very closely to how I would answer of not trying to be apologetic or trying to say I'm going to do 50 million things with the result of winning a reality show, but in the meantime actually she just came here because she wanted to play and she wanted to win. Good for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked her response, I meant to say.
And so basically summarizing the responses, Ben talks about helping his parents retire and helping his friend's music education nonprofit, which was super cool. Charlie talks about paying for law school and helping his family. And Kenzie just says, "I've been working since 15, had my license since 17, and owned my salon since 24." And she talks about how she doesn't make a ton of money from the chairs that she sells, salon chairs, I guess, or from the haircuts or hairstyles she does. And she goes, this is my one moment to do something for me. Me coming out here, delaying my wedding, was me being selfish for the first time. This money, I'll use it for me, my future, my family. I'd invest it. Which at the time I'm thinking, okay, risky answer. Two other people just talked about helping their families and nonprofits, but I loved it. I wasn't sure how it would affect her or how it would work, but I love the answer. I love the honesty. And I love just not being afraid to say, yeah, I'm doing this for me. There doesn't always have to be another cause.
I think if it was someone else answering that question, it's a higher risk, but her ability to just talk about herself without being like seen as obnoxious or self-absorbed is just it's a very beneficial skill that she has. If you say someone else is sitting there saying, "Yeah, I'm going to spend it on myself," that's not going to win anyone any favors. But the way she was able to articulate that into a more professional, profound statement, I felt was a game-winning move there.
Yeah, great answer from her. I like hearing the answers. I love just hearing what they're going to do, how the money would affect their lives. I just don't like it as a question that decides how you're going to vote. I feel like you should be voting based off the game. But Q has every right to ask whatever jury question he wants. So I get it.
Mm.
And it's not the first time this question has came up. It goes all the way back to Africa, probably, I believe. So closing arguments come up. Charlie's is basically my strategy was never close a door, never shut the door on a possible relationship. Kenzie talked about how she was a social butterfly who was competitive in challenges, and thanks them. Nice touch here. Thanks the jury for listening, even though they have to be there.
Mhm.
And Ben's closing argument is he wanted to be the emotional version of him, not the frontman performer version of him, and that he played the game he wanted to play. Which I love hearing it. I love how much Ben has grown this season, but I can't help but remember. I forget who it was. One of the jurors on Token Chains told Fish back, "You've grown so much this season, but the winner isn't the person who has the most personal growth," or something like that. So, and then we see a couple really cool voting confessionals. Q somehow still hasn't figured out how to spell Kenzie's name. That might have been on purpose, but it's Q, so who knows? What's interesting to me is, of all people, like as voting is happening, Tevin leans over to someone and goes, "I'm stuck between two choices here." And like still hasn't decided as his fellow jury members are voting. That was wild.
Yeah, I don't know how authentic that was, or if it was for TV, but I don't know. I feel like he was probably in that position of Kenzie or Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think of that until you just mentioned it.
At this point, like as they're voting, my note was I won't be surprised by either a Kenzie or a Charlie win. Listening to On Fire today, Probst described this final tribal as kind of like a boxing match. Like even him sitting there hosting was like, "Oh, Kenzie just scored a point. Oh, Charlie just had a really good answer. He just scored one." And it was this back and forth. 2 seasons in a row, we've had really competitive final tribals. Kenzie and Charlie here. D versus Austin last season, which D played one of the best winning games ever. I still am surprised that she won only in a 5-3 vote, but I'm getting myself off topic again. Probst is reading the votes, and at one point it's a 3-3, and I wrote down, if Ben has to be a deciding vote and has to decide between Kenzie and Charlie again, we saw how like emotional that was for him last time. He may have a breakdown if he has to break a tie here.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. If it was a 4-4 tie and Ben was forced to, would he have been able to handle it? I wouldn't want
That's a good point.
that stress in my own life, and I don't envy Laurel for having to do that. I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine Ben having to do that. It's tough.
Well, and last season, the season finale with On Fire, they had Dion as the winner. They had the whole final three on this time. And Probst asked Ben, had you had to break a tie, who would you have voted for? And he says obviously he can't answer 100% accurately because it's been months since then. But he said he's pretty sure he would have voted for Charlie.
Interesting. Okay.
Which makes sense. Kind of surprising after seeing Kenzie holding Ben's hand through panic attacks every night for half the game. Yeah. But him and Charlie were together from day one, so it makes sense.
It would be interesting because it's probably the two people he would have been breaking a tie with are the two closest people to Ben this whole game.
Yeah. So my girl Kenzie wins. Super excited. Love her. I do want to kind of talk about where we rank her among winning games of the new era in a second. But before we get there, the after show revealed something really interesting that I feel like, and I don't want to get into the after show, but we can't not talk about this one. Maria's jury vote. I don't know what to do with that. She
I'm
didn't
just going
vote
to
for Charlie.
start this by saying, let's put two things into it, because I think they were tied together, at least in my mind. There's Maria's vote, but there's also Liz's vote. And I think they cancel each other out in this point, because I didn't see either of them coming. I thought they'd both go the other way. But as far as Maria's vote goes, and this is what I was hinting at the beginning that I wanted to talk about at this point, I think if Charlie and Maria try to get one person with them, probably being Ben, at 5, Maria votes for Charlie. At this point, if you're Maria, you're thinking Charlie was plotting to get rid of her and then was totally okay with everything that happened and voted for her anyway, so what the hell?
The interesting, and this thought crossed my mind, going back to 45, Dee kind of, when Julie went home, Dee knew it was happening, but still refused to write Julie's name down just because of how close they had been. Maria still goes home if Charlie votes for Ben with Maria. I'm curious, had he just gone with her in some sort of like symbolic but meaningless way if she would have voted for him? I don't know. Because she says she voted for Ben at the after show after watching Kenzie make fire. But there's got to be more to it than that, I feel like.
Yeah, there's been a lot of accusations that she's bitter or was a sore loser. I, I don't know. I don't want to make a blanket statement like that because I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, I agree.
But then again, when I heard her response of, I gave it to Kenzie because she had fire in her eyes, I was like, that doesn't really sound convincing.
Yeah, it didn't add up to me. I've seen the same things that you're talking about, Stephen, about her being bitter.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to go back to the start of the episode. I mean, I can't blame any emotions Maria has at this point for the way she went out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Bruce, I also agree. If Charlie would have voted with her on that final 5 vote, I think she may have voted for him. I don't want to say that, but with such definity, but I think it couldn't have hurt.
But like, if that's what decides whether you vote for him or not, that's such a, like, even if he had voted for Ben, that makes no difference.
Yeah. I feel like no one really knows except Maria.
Yeah. The thing that makes me sad is that these two were so tight, and even when Maria was standing in there voting for Charlie last episode, she said, like, I can't wait for the kids to meet Uncle Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, that's when things were going her way, too. Well, she thought they were. But from what I can tell, and he posted a couple, like, screenshots of, like, notes he wrote on Twitter that I didn't see till right before this. but it kind of seems like the two of them just aren't even like close or aren't even friends at this point. So that's kind of sad to see.
Yeah, but
He
that's
handled it really well though.
he does. I the way he was sitting there looking so dejected, I couldn't help but feel for the guy.
I hate the after show for that very reason.
Yeah, give him some time to process.
But like what he said in the moment was great, very gracious. The jury still got this right. And even today on I believe what he said on Fire when asked about it was something along the lines of, "Yes, I stand by everything I said at the after show, but that was still kind of brutal and hard to get over." So,
I'd
but
like, yeah, I would like to see a season if they keep this after show where say the person who comes in second place is so pissed that they just walk off. Like I would love that. Just to see Jeff be like, "Oh shit, we shouldn't be doing this." Like this is real people's emotions.
also doing the after show instead of the reunion means we don't get to hear from the pre-mergers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my co-host on Reality Realm's new Amazing Race show, Kevin Oliver, and he's been on here a couple times, is a Jelinski fan because Jelinski's hilarious. Jelinski in a reunion would have said something off the like him and
Yeah.
Q together would have resulted in something iconic.
I mean, with Jelensky having him at the reunion, there would have been several
I see what you did there.
there would have been several jokes to be made, and he's a good sport based on what I see on Twitter that I think it would have been entertaining. And I don't know, like my parents watch Survivor and they're like, who is this person they keep talking about? Like they don't remember what he looks like. I'm like, I don't know.
He has merch, and there's a T-shirt of him like throwing the hourglass where he looks like Shaggy from Scooby Doo on the shirt. Kevin has the shirt,
That's
but
great.
he looks like Shaggy.
Yeah,
The
if there's ever a case to bring back another first boot, Jelinski's on my list.
Yeah, I lied. I will touch on one more subject from the after show. The little montage of iconic quotes as they're talking about Jelinski was so
Oh,
great.
I when they showed Tarzan and he said the game is afoot, I almost smacked my wife's like shoulder. I was like, this is like because
I
my
saw
whole
your
account
tweet
is
where you
based
said
on
it made you
quotes.
so happy, but the game was afoot.
Yeah, I mean the whole my whole account is based on quotes. So to see quotes brought back, like I was so excited, and to see like Sue Hawk, Snakes and Rats, like it's
Yeah.
just I got chills.
Well, and like for someone who doesn't know the show or isn't a fan, or even someone who's a fan but isn't necessarily a super fan, that montage might not mean a ton, but like that, those of us that know it and know it well, it's just so many iconic moments all right there together. It's like when someone goes into the Hall of Fame in your sport and you watch all their career highlights. That's what it felt like. It was so cool.
Yeah, and I think it was only like 10 seconds long. I could watch like 20 minutes of that.
Oh yeah, the the special they did right before Winners at War aired. I hadn't seen a lot of those moments yet when it aired, but going back and watching that now that I've seen everything is so much fun.
Hmm.
But so wrapping this up, Kenzie wins. Love Kenzie, at least I do. To put a bow on season 46 and Tribal Council Chat's coverage of 46, where do you guys rank Kenzie as far as new era winners? And where do you rank, like, where does 46 rank for you among new era seasons?
46 in New Era seasons, I put in fifth place, right above 41. But Kenzie as a New Era winner, I put probably in probably around second, third, definitely below D, but right around where Jam Jam is.
Fair enough. Yeah,
I'm gonna make a bold statement and say 46 is my favorite of the new era.
Oh,
Just
nice.
for the chaos.
I do like it.
I love the
45 is still my
chaos.
favorite, but I like 46 a lot.
45 was my favorite until this season, and I'm not saying anything negative about 45, but just the chaotic energy in this season was something that I think Survivor lacks a lot of times. But when that lightning does strike, It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Kenzie, I'm gonna put her kind of what Brett said. I think D is definitely above her. Tied with Jam Jam for social game. But then Marianne's got more strategic moves, I think. So I'm gonna put her third, I think, with D, Marianne, then Kenzie, then Jam Jam, then Erica, and then Gabler.
I'm with you. I'd probably put 46 at second or third. And my new era winners is, and I'm biased because I'm a fan of hers and I picked her, but my new era winner rankings it just is D than everyone else. Because to me, she's just the best player of the new era for sure.
I mean,
And
I love D, but also she looks like my ex-girlfriend from college, and it breaks my heart. So
like, my thing with her is not only was she excellent at executing her game, but there were so many times me and Brett were just like, I don't know how D is doing this. The cast is playing her game for her and playing her best interest over their own half the time.
I felt like
Yeah.
she was a young Kim Spradlin, and not saying
Yeah,
Kim Spradlin's old, but Kim Spradlin is a mom, and
yeah,
D is like the college version of Kim Spradlin.
yeah. So, long story short, my winner rankings are D, then everyone else. I would probably have Kenzie, like you guys said, second or third. Kenzie, Jam Jam, Marianne, all just kind of two, three, four, whatever order you want to put them in. I'm good with.
Mhm. And I think we'll see a good majority of these winners on season 50, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. So that kind of puts a bow on our 46 coverage. Steven, thanks so much for coming on the show again. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
And
Do a quick Allied blindside first boot.
sure, I'm down if Steven is.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so my Allied blindside first boot that I have for today that I prepared, feel free to go right after, is three players that I thought back to a season in the Philippines, season 25 when we had this. We had Jonathan Penner, Russell Swan, and Mike Scoopin, three players who were medevaced out of the game and thus didn't get their fair shake. And at least at the time, this is where I was mentioning that I thought I was going to be the only one to bring up Mike. And with this Allied Blindside first boot, I'm hoping, who knows, maybe if someone in junior casting finds us on YouTube, I've got a theme for you for season 39 or 49,
Oh boy.
which is we had male medevacs. I'm going to give you female players who were screwed by production errors. So your Allied Blindside first boot is Maria, Lydia, Meredith, and Sydney Siegel.
Hmm.
Bruce, do you want to go first?
No, but I will anyway. Uh, I'll align. Sydney's hilarious, and I feel like spending time with her on a beach would be fun. I'll align with Sydney. I was gonna align with Maria. I feel like Maria has a better shot to beat me in front of a jury than Sydney does, because Maria did rub people the wrong way, but I feel like Sydney also has that potential. And I'll blindside Maria and make it a resume move and just hope that someone doesn't have competitive looking eyes in the fire making competition. But and then that leads me to first boot Lydia because she's the only one left.
Yeah, I have to agree with blindsiding Maria. I think that's a great move, especially when she's got such a high threat level. But I'm gonna first boot Sydney because I'm intimidated by her, and I think she's probably a little too intense for me, and that's speaking to her power. And I'm gonna align with Lydia. I think we got the same ability to vibe, and her Twitter is hilarious,
Mm-hmm.
and I just want to follow that for the rest of my life.
So I'll go next. I've just thought of this on the spot. I didn't know we were doing this episode. I spent a lot of this season saying that I don't think Venus intends to be rude, that she was just kind of a very blunt person and it came off that way and didn't always realize how she came off. I've compared her to Abby Maria in that way. Someone else that also wasn't very liked because they were just kind of blunt and rude at times was Cass. So I'm going Venus, Abby Maria, and Cass.
Interesting.
Oh God.
That's a reaction.
I'm going to ally with Abby there, blindside Venus, and first boot cast.
I don't feel super confident getting to the end aligning with any of the three, honestly. They're all kind of sporadic.
See, I feel like aligning with Cass would be a dangerous move because she's shown that she could backstab without caring,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a testament to her. So I would first boot Cass. I feel like I would align with Abby because if I just fed into the stories she was telling, or kind of what Pete did in Philippines, where he just kind of placated her, and I feel like I could work with that and then win against her at the finals. And I got to first boot Venus because I think she's too good looking, and I'm gonna go Brandon Hance on there. I couldn't. I got to get my crush out of there first, even though he was creepy about it.
Oh gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was awful.
I yeah. I will first boot Cass for the reasons you said. I will align with Abby. She's very sporadic in the game, and I don't know if I'd be able to get to the end with her based on what we saw in the show. But having text with her a little bit outside the show and hearing her on podcasts like RHAP, she seems so like such a nice person.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that having not been on the show for a few years, coming out, say season 50, we get a more grounded version of Abby is what I'm banking on, like we see with a lot of people that play and then come back a lot of years later.
Yeah,
And
I like
so,
Cass. I mean Abby. I like Abby as a person. I just think living in the environment with her, she's got to, she gets hangry, and as we all do, but it hits
Yeah.
her differently.
but she did hit he who shall not be named in the head with a coconut, so
And
that's
I
good.
love her for it. I love it.
Yeah.
And we've all three mentioned him now, and I didn't know any of us were going to before recording this.
All right, I'm gonna give you my three. I'm gonna give you three winners that were not chosen for winners at war that I'm upset about.
Ooh,
So I'm gonna give you Vesepia, one of the first low-key game players, beat the radar, under the radar. I love Vesepia. I think my account is a testament to how much I love Kathy Vio, but I'm gonna give some
Yeah.
props to Vesepia here. I was upset that Fabio was not there, and I want to see how an adult Fabio does. So Fabio, Visepia, and I tweeted out yesterday about my friend Laura, who I used to watch Survivor with, and for the finale of Gabon, she wore a bow tie and was full on Team Bob, and I have an emotional connection to Bob for that in Survivor. So you got Fabio, Visepia, and Bob. So what do you think?
I like this. When you announced your theme, I thought, okay, it's gonna be Hatch and who else, but
I
I'm
didn't want to be
gonna.
too obvious. I wanted to throw a little loop out there.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but I'm gonna ally with Fabio. I think it would just have been hilarious to see how his gameplay would have been different to those 19 other people out there. I'm gonna blindside Vesepia, probably just because she's the one I don't know what to expect. She could have came into Winners at War and been a top tier player. She could have been an early boot. Who has any idea? And I'm gonna first boot Bob just because who doesn't love him at the end of the game?
Mhm. I just love the idea of like Fabio interacting with Tony. I think that would be hilarious. He'd be like,
That
dude,
would
what's
have
a
been.
fire token? I have no idea. Like,
I like the idea of Fabio interacting with Game Changers Tony specifically, because that might be my favorite version of Tony somehow.
okay, okay.
Probably not, but like Game Changers Tony is just nobody's there to keep him in check. So he's
Yeah,
just
he doesn't have his Trish, he doesn't have his Sarah. He's like just unmedicated on his own.
day one. I'm gonna run into the woods and look for an idol. But I'll probably align with Fabio because just gut feeling, I feel like I have a better chance of beating him at the end than either of the other two. I will blindside Bob because if I have a good enough relationship with him, I feel like he won't be bitter against me blindsiding him. Not that Vesepia would, but I just want to spend more time around Bob. Which I hate first booting Vesepia. She seems so great, but that's the only name left, so I have to. But
The fact that Vesepia has never been axed back ever, according to her, is a crime. I can't believe it. And
Absolutely.
I can only imagine like if All Stars would have been a 20-person cast with two tribes of 10, like what could have been.
I bel I want to say it was on Talking with T-Bird when she was on there, but I've heard Sandra say she was in the running and casting for All Stars and was going to be on it, but couldn't because of some parasite she had contracted from Pearl Islands.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if she had been out there, who knows how different that season would have. Her and Rob would have been on a season way before they met in 20.
And I think it's interesting to note that like when the casting happened for All Stars, a lot of people were like, "Why is this Boston Rob guy back? He didn't even make the jury." Like, and now he's the face of the show. Basically, he's in the top 5 most famous Survivor players ever. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how things happen like that.
Now that it's over, my mom and I started watching Deal or No Deal Island this past week,
Mm.
and I can already tell the way they're gonna. I've watched 2 episodes, I think, with her. They're gonna make him the main character of the season, which I love. I love Rob. He's great TV. But the first time you see him, he says it as only he can. If these people were smart, they'd get rid of me early. But they won't. They never do. I just
Mm.
his brand of like smiling but also being just so cocky and arrogant at the same time is such great TV.
I really wish he would have been on Traders season 2 with Sandra and Parvati. That would have been
Yeah.
something. And I get there's like a lot of Boston Rob haters out there, but he would have been good with those two.
Get him on season 3, please.
I want to see Tyson on Traders season 3.
I don't need this person on my TV more often, but Russell Hantz on the Traders would be an experience.
Yeah, that
I
would be
don't need
something.
him on my TV again, but I just want to see how that would go.
Yeah, I've said a
Seeing
bunch of
how
anti.
into
Go ahead.
just seeing how into like strategy games she is, I really want to see Michelle on the Traders, of course.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's a valid. I think she'll be there eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob's the big one I want to see though, because I love Rob. But this has been a fun episode. So much fun having you back on the show,
Yeah.
Steven.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Follow
Oh, you're
Steven
welcome.
on Twitter and Instagram at SurvivorQuotesX. And Tribal Council Chat is now a show on the Reality Realm Network. And be watching out for Reality Realm's other show.
Yeah.
Pit Stop Pals. Sorry, I had to remember the name of the show I'm on. Episodes of that'll drop every Monday. We are recapping Amazing Race 25 right now. So, first
The
episode of
rumor
that'll
is
be next Monday.
and the rumor is mid-August. So look out for like end of July. TT Fernandez, our guest host from a couple weeks ago, and I are going to be recapping the challenge season 40.
Yeah, lots of exciting things happening with our new network, new expansion. Be watching out for all of that. Grab your torches and head back to camp, guys. Bye.